Hello, everybody, and welcome. I will just hold on a few seconds as people come online. Sometimes it takes a while to show that people are online. I'm streaming on 3 platforms, here on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So wherever you are joining from, please say hello and let me know which part of the world you are joining from today. It looks like there's problems streaming to Facebook. I'm not quite sure why. Can't see why. So I'll just give it a few more seconds till I can see that people are online. So if anyone's online, let me know, because it's showing at the moment that there's no one online. And if there's no one online, that's okay. I'll still go ahead and do it because I know that people will watch on the replay. Yes, we've got someone here from rainy Wiltshire. Hi from rainy Wiltshire. It's been raining in London today, although I think it looks like it's stopped now, but it was earlier. So it's a bit colder today as well. Hello from Rochester in Kent. Hello and welcome. So yes, as you join, do share where you're joining from, what part of the world you are joining from today. Usually we do have a global attendance on these LinkedIn Lives, and it's always good to know where people are from. So it looks like the UK's in the lead today. We've got Nottinghamshire as well, so good to have you from Nottinghamshire. So before I begin, whilst we're waiting for people to start, Psychologists Today reports that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some time. And when I do polls or ask for people to raise their hands, whether it's on webinars, whether it's in-person events, invariably it's a lot higher than that. And I usually get it's in the 90% of people say that they experience imposter syndrome. And one workshop that I did last year, 100% of participants said that they experienced it. And more recently, a webinar that I did for Introverted Women Leaders, 91% revealed that they experience it. And contrary to what many people think, it's not just women who experience it, men experience it too. And I'm increasingly working with men who are being open about their experience of it. Hi, Kevin from Tanzania. Great to have you here. And hello from Thailand and hello from Chicago. Great to have you here as well. And so for those of you that are joining one of my LinkedIn Lives for the first time and don't know who I am, so I'm Carol Stewart. I'm an executive career leadership coach, speaker, trainer, and author of the book Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman. And I coach leaders to lead with confidence, influence, and impact, with a particular emphasis on introversion and introverted leaders, because the corporate environment in many locations is very much geared towards extroversion, and it's often the case that he or she who shouts the loudest are the ones that get heard, get the recognition, get ahead, get the rewards, and it's the quieter ones that get overlooked. So that's why I specialize in introversion, and I'm introverted myself. And as a leader in an organization prior to starting my coaching business, I was aware of the challenges that I faced as well. So welcome to Master Imposter Syndrome, Self-Doubt, and Unleash Your Inner Power. And what I'm going to be looking at today is I'm going to be looking at removing the stigma associated with introversion, how you can change your perceptions about yourself, because if you change your perceptions about yourself, that will change how you feel and how you act and behave. And I'll be talking about how you can step into your power. And so by the end of this live, you'll hopefully be able to apply techniques to tackle it. And if you want further support, I'll direct you to where you can go for help. So hello from Cape Town. And so looking at removing the stigma, as I mentioned, so many people experience it, but it's something that doesn't get talked openly. And I think if more people talked openly about their experiences of it, then it would help to remove some of the stigma that is associated with it. So I'm not going to go in today about where it comes from and too much about why we experience it, because I've covered that before. And if you look through my videos, you will find that I've covered that in more detail before. So it's more about looking at removing the stigma that we associate with it. And I think even the term imposter syndrome has an impact on the stigma, because when you think of the syndrome, imposter and the original researchers of imposter syndrome, they called it imposter phenomenon, and over the years it has morphed into imposter syndrome. But it is not a syndrome. It's not recognized as a psychological disorder. It is an experience. I prefer to use the term imposter experience, but I use the terminology imposter syndrome when I'm writing or speaking, because that is what people have come to know it as. But I do prefer the term imposter experience. And there's a lot of factors that are at play when we experience imposter syndrome. And like I said, if more people talked about it, I think that it would remove the stigma, and particularly those in senior roles, senior leaders, executives, CEOs, because they experience it as well. Many of them do experience it as well. And that it'd be like it would give us permission if we saw that more people were open about it, to recognize that it's not something we have to hide away and be ashamed of. And one of the things that often plays into our experience of it is the environments that we are in. And if you don't fit the mold, you can experience it. So you could be a woman in a male-dominated environment, a Black person in a predominantly white environment, someone from a advantaged socioeconomic background in a socioeconomic privileged environment. And if you are, someone who is LGBTQ plus in a predominantly heterosexual environment. So not fitting the mold may make you feel like you are not good enough, you doubt yourself, that you don't deserve to be there, that you are going to get found out that you're not good enough. So I've got a question here from Naylor. I'll just put that up so I can see it. What is your imposter syndrome, and how do you recognize it? So Naylor, it's described as a feelings of inadequacy, feeling that you are going to get found out, that you're not good enough, doubting yourself as not being good enough, feeling like you are a fraud. So if you experience any of those sort of feelings, you often find it quite common in people who are high achievers, because they doubt themselves, they put a lot of pressure on themselves, and that can lead to feelings of self-doubt. As I mentioned, people who are in the dominant, so people who are in the minority to the dominant group can experience it more so than those who are in the dominant group. And recognizing the part that the environment plays can be helpful to you addressing it. So many of us have internalized oppression. We may have had some sort of oppressions in our life. It could be as a result of racism, as a result of sexism, as a result of homophobia, as a result of some other what society may deem as not fitting the norm, or not being like everybody else, or it could have been as a child where you may be made to feel that you're not good enough, or even where you've been put on a pedestal and you can't live up to people's expectations. And so naming it for what it is, that recognizing are these feelings of inadequacy as a result of being in an environment where I may be different to everybody else? Is it as a result of internalized racism or systemic racism or internalized sexism or systemic sexism? And once you recognize the part the environment has to play, you realize that it's not you, it's the environment. The environment has made you feel like you are inadequate. And so by naming it for what it is, that helps to remove the stigma as well. So naming it for, yes, systemic issues are at play here that are making me feel inadequate. And that can help to liberate your mind as well. And if I look at my experience of imposter syndrome, I've experienced it and I continue to experience it at times. And the thing is, we may master it in one situation, and then we find ourselves in a new environment or taking on a new challenge, and it rears its head again. So I have 3 significant experiences of imposter syndrome that I can recall. I would say one was when I was working as a leader in an organization, and I'd got promoted from a junior leader to a senior leader in a relatively short space of time. And I remember being in the role and struggling and doubting myself. And I was expecting that I was going to get a phone call any moment to say, Carol, we're really sorry, we made a mistake, we shouldn't have promoted you. But because I'm quite self-aware, I recognized that I was self-sabotaging, and I recognized that I was doubting myself. And so what I then did was looked at, well, what is it that I need to do to bring myself up to speed with those areas that I'm struggling with? And when I looked through my job description at the long list of things that I had to do, there were just 2 things on there that I was struggling with. And I was writing myself off and doubting myself as a result of just 2 things. And so once I'd identified that, I was then able to get the support and the training that could bring me up to speed. The second significant occasion was after I wrote my book, Quietly Visible, and I'd done the transcript and sent it off to the public. I had the feeling of, oh my gosh, people are going to think, who does she think she is writing about this topic? And again, because of my self-awareness, I was able to recognize that I was self-sabotaging, and I was able to talk to myself and silence that negative voice that was telling me that I wasn't good enough, that my people were like my book, or people weren't going to get any value from my book. And the third time was more recent, which was last year. Introverted women leaders experience belonging and psychological safety in the workplace. And I went to an event in London where Amy Edmondson, who's a Harvard professor, was attending, and she is like the world expert on psychological safety, and her work was a key reference in my research. And I bought her book, and when she was signing it, I told her this, that her work had been a key reference in my research, and she said, oh, she would be interested in reading my research and to send it to her. And I didn't ask her for her email address or anything, and I just said yes, I would. And then I left, and I started to think to myself, oh my gosh, you know, this is this big Harvard professor. Who am I to send my research to her? And I was starting to doubt myself and think that my research wasn't good enough to send to her. And again, because I'm quite self-aware, I recognized what was going on, and I talked to myself, and I told myself that, well, if she doesn't like it, that's okay, because other people do like it. I got a dissertation for my research. My research supervisor wants me to publish it. And if she doesn't like it, that's okay. And so I hadn't got her email address. And I think that was probably part of the self-sabotaging, because if I didn't have it, then I wouldn't have to send it. But once I talked to myself, and I went onto the Harvard website and found that I could contact waited and reached out to contact her. And I got an email from her, and she gave me her an email address and said to me to send it. And I explained to her that I had had a dose of imposter syndrome. And she said to me, we all experience it sometimes. And I sent it to her, and she told me that she was looking forward to reading it. And so that's my experience, and there's been many other occasions. And so thinking about yourself and when you're experiencing it, I would sort of go on about how you can put things into perspective so that it has less of an impact on you. And so naming it for what it is and recognizing the part the environment plays and how that can help the environment as a result of certain things that you've been through, you may internalize. And so if you have internalized past experiences where you've maybe been oppressed or felt oppressed or been made to think that you are not good enough, challenge the status quo. And when I say challenge the status quo, what I mean by that is just challenge the fact that the environment is systemically having an impact on people and how they feel about themselves, and name it for what it is. And so the next thing I want to look about is how you can change your perceptions about yourself. And what I say is for you to pay close attention to your thoughts, because we have thousands and thousands of thoughts a day, but we don't always pay attention to what we're thinking about. And the thoughts that you have may not necessarily be thoughts that are helping you, because many of us are very much led by our emotions, and the way that we think affects how we feel, and we act and behave according to how we're feeling. And this is as a result of the thoughts and beliefs that we have about ourselves, about the environments that we are in, or about something that we may have to do. And so when you are doubting yourself and telling yourself, I'm not good enough, they're going to get found out that I'm no good, I feel like a fraud. When you're telling yourself that, that's going to make you feel anxious. It's going to make you feel fearful. It's going to affect your self-confidence. As a result of that, then you either you don't do what you know you want to do or need to do, or you do it, but because of how you feel, you're feeling, and because of the fear, the anxiety, you don't do it to the best of your ability. You don't perform to the best of your ability. And then what happens is you go into meetings or environments, interviews, or whatever it is, and you lack psychological privilege. And so other people, you are giving them a psychological advantage because you are going into that space not believing in yourself. And then what happens is you're not on an equal footing. And some people do this without even realizing this, that they're lacking that psychological privilege. And what can happen is subconsciously you put other people on the pedestal, and you think that they're better than you, and that they're more confident than you, or they deserve to be there, and you put yourself down in the process. And I've seen this play out sometimes with clients when I'm coaching. One particular coaching client, we were talking about her situation, and she actually went like that. The people or the person who she was comparing herself to, and then she went like that as if that was her, and she did that without even realizing it. And I pointed it out that she's putting that person on the pedestal, and because she's lacking psychological privilege, she's downplaying herself, so she's not on equal footing. And that means that you can't then have an equal conversation because you're not putting yourself on the same level as them. And so what we need to do in these sorts of situations is challenge what you think and believe about yourself and change it for something more helpful. And so it's about recognizing what those thoughts and beliefs are that you have about yourself, challenging them. What is the evidence to support what you're thinking and what you believe? So to illustrate an example, one particular client who moved to the UK 5 years ago, from a non-English speaking country. English wasn't their first language. She taught herself how to speak English in a very short space of time, in less than 6 months, about 3 months. She taught herself to speak English. But she had issues when she was in meetings, when at work, in communicating with people, because she felt that she wasn't good enough. So there was nothing, it wasn't there was anything wrong with her speaking. It was just that she believed that there was a problem with it. And she'd had a couple of situations where people had corrected her in a meeting, which then made her feel worse about herself. But what I asked her was, well, how many people does she work with? And there was something like 45 people who she has immediate contact with. And I said, well, out of those 45 people, how many have actually corrected you? And there was only 2 people. And so she was focusing on just 2 people who'd corrected her. And even then, when we sort of unpicked it, we looked at, well, were they actually correcting her because they didn't think she was good enough, or were they doing it as a way of helping her and supporting her? And by putting things into perspective like this, it helped her to shift her thinking and what she believed about herself, that out of all the people that she came into contact with on a daily basis, the majority of people didn't correct her when she spoke. And so she was blowing things out of proportion. She was magnifying those 2 people compared to all the other people that she worked with. So challenge what you think and what you believe and change it to something more helpful. And you might find writing down what your thoughts are when you are in a situation where you're experiencing imposter syndrome or you're doubting yourself, writing down what you're thinking, and then write down corresponding words which are more helpful, which are more rational, and which are more reflective of what is actually happening. Because if you change what you think and what you believe, you change how you feel, you change how you feel, you change how you act and behave. And it's not just about positive thinking. It's because if you have an inherent belief that you are not good enough, even if you just say to yourself, I am good enough, I am good enough, I am good enough, that's not necessarily going to help. And it can actually make you feel worse if you do not believe it. It's about changing what you believe about yourself, because that will help to change how you feel. And practicing this on a regular basis it will get easier to recognize when you are getting in the way of yourself and when you are self-sabotaging. And then identify if there are areas that you do need to develop and get the support if needed. So I talked about my situation when I got promoted to a senior leader, and once I looked at my situation rationally, I was able to see that there was just 2 areas that I was struggling with, and I was able to get the necessary training and support to bring myself up to speed in that. So don't mistake competency for confidence. So identify whether you do need to develop certain skills, whether you need to do more preparation. Identify what it is that you need and get the support or put into place what is needed to help you be your best. And the final thing I want to look at is stepping into your power. And the first thing I want to talk about stepping into your power is self-acceptance, accepting yourself for who you are, and recognizing that you've got things that you are good at, things that you're not good at, things that you are sort of middle of the road at, and that is okay. And everybody else is the same, got things that they're good at and things that they're not good at. But if you're focusing on those things that you're not good at all the time, that's not a true reflection of who you are. Self-acceptance is recognizing that we all have different skills, different talents, things that we're good at, things that we're not good at, and that is okay. And another thing is recognizing that you do not need approval from anyone. You do not need approval. And once you recognize that you do not need approval from anyone, it's then easier to feel that you can be your authentic self. And if you show up as your authentic self, you are naturally more confident and you have more of a belief in yourself. And the other thing is to utilize your strengths. We often focus on our weaknesses and the things that we're not good at. And I sort of described with a client who came here from Europe, who came to the UK from Europe, she wasn't focusing on the fact that she had been selected for this particular role, the fact that she had even left the organization, and they asked her to come back because she was so good at what she did. She wasn't focusing on that. She was just focusing on the fact that because English wasn't her first language, she didn't necessarily speak the King's English. And rather than looking at all the wealth of what she brought to her role, her skills, her abilities, her experience. So utilize your strengths and look at those introverted strengths that you have, the thinking and reflecting and processing of information, the analytical, whatever those strengths are, utilize them. Don't focus on those things that are weaknesses. And it's not to totally disregard your weaknesses, because there are weaknesses that you may need to develop, but it's not letting them take a stronghold over you when there are so many more things that you are good at, that you are natural at, that you are not utilizing or you're not focusing on. And when you focus on your strengths, when you utilize your strengths on a daily basis, you will be more empowered, you'll be more motivated, you'll be more confident, and it's better for your overall well-being as well. And the final thing I want to say is about being at your optimal. So being at your best physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So thinking of them as like energies, those four energies: the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual, and looking at how you can keep yourself topped up in all those areas. So things around physical, making sure that you're getting sufficient sleep, sufficient rest, you're having fun as well. It's not all work and no play, and that you are eating healthily, you are getting sufficient exercise. Mentally is about what you're feeding your mind and managing how you worry, but not worrying about things, because worry can't add anything to your life apart from stress and anxiety. And so feeding your mind things that will edify you and uplift you. Emotional is about looking at how you manage stress and stressful situations and how you respond to those emotions and those negative emotions as well. Spiritual is about being in touch with the things that add meaning to your life, the things which are important, being aligned to your values and living those values, doing those things that give you joy or enable you to tap into your creativity. And if you've got one of the particular faith, utilizing your faith and tapping into your faith as well. So keeping yourself topped up in all those areas will enable you to be at your optimal, because when you are your optimal, the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome are less likely to have a hold on you. It's where when you're depleted in any of those areas, say for example, you're tired, you've not had enough sleep, you're more likely to get that negative chitter chatter coming in your head, telling you that you're not good enough, that you're imposter, that you're a fake, you're going to get found out that you're not really any good. So recognize when you are depleted in those areas and look at what you can do to keep yourself topped up. So now that you're clear about how you can tackle imposter syndrome, go and put it into practice. And for some of you, you may have experienced this for a long time and you may need further support. And if that is the case, do send me a DM and I'll let you know how I can support you. So next month's LinkedIn Live, I will be talking about how to have presence, how to, as an introverted leader, to exude a presence and command the room. So do stay tuned and do join, do follow me so that you will find out when it is going to take place. And the final thing that I want to say is I'm going to be holding the very first Introverted Leaders Conference on the 13th of September in London. Do join the wait list, and you will be informed of when tickets go on sale, and you will receive an exclusive discount. And I will share the QR code, if I can work out how to share, so that you can, well, I'll put the link in the comments, and I will share a QR code. Let's have a look. I'll share a QR code that you can scan so that you can add yourself on. One second. And in the meantime, whilst I'm looking for the QR code, any questions, do put them in the comments and I will answer your questions. I'm just going to get you the QR code. I had it up on my screen ready, but for some reason it doesn't want to share, so I'm going to share it this way. It's not letting me. So what I will do is I will put the link so that you can add yourself to the waiting list for the conference. So any questions before I sign off, do let me know. I've got a comment here. This is excellent. Yes, it is being recorded. And yes, do please share this with your daughter. Thank you for your comments. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. If you have got any questions, I'll hang on for a few more seconds. Or if you want to send me them privately, then do DM me any questions. Okay, so well, I'm going to sign off now. Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to check the comments to make sure that I've not missed any comments. Right. Okay, so thank you, everybody. And until the next time, bye.